The last time American voters went to the polls, Bitcoin was trading in the teens, and 3 days later, FTX filed for bankruptcy. Well, this year's election couldn't be more opposite. Bitcoin's back up in the 60s, and presidential hopefuls are honored guests at this year's Bitcoin conference. In 2024, cryptocurrency is a campaign issue, and we're seeing unprecedented influence from crypto money. Crypto executive Ryan Selkis delivered this line straight to former President Donald Trump.
There's 50 million crypto holders in the U.S. That's a lot of votes.
It's only recently that Trump has positioned himself the pro-crypto candidate. He announced his support for crypto back in May of this year. Now he's the keynote speaker at this week's Nashville conference. He's also simultaneously holding a campaign fundraiser there, where CNBC reports the top ticket is commanding $844,600 per person. Independent candidate RFK Jr. is speaking to the crypto crowd Friday afternoon, while new in the race VP Kamala Harris ultimately decided against speaking, a decision crypto heavyweights warn will come back to haunt her. I want to welcome in Ali Madavji, managing partner of the Blockchain Founders Fund. Ali, you're joining us from Nashville. I'm curious, in your mind, is it a mistake for Kamala Harris to decide against speaking there?
So this is definitely a really big mistake. I think what we've seen from the Democratic Party over the last, few years has been a fairly anti-crypto policy, set of policies. And over the last maybe 4, 5, 6 months, we've seen that start to shift a little bit, right? We obviously had the Bitcoin ETF approval, most recently with the Ethereum ETF approval. So there's been some small progress, but it's really an opportunity for Kamala Harris to really distance herself, I think, from some of the policies that have happened over the Democratic Party and try to mend, the divide and actually try to go out and really bring in and speak to the 50, 60 million Americans that hold crypto. And I think that's just a missing piece now with her not showing up here.
Yeah, crypto billionaire Tyler Winklevoss said that she can't even take the first step and show up to start mending fences. Our industry won't forget this. We will show no mercy in November. You think that's the case?
I do think that that's going to be a big part of it, right? So when you look at some of the concerns of not only the American people, but I would say this is almost a global issue. But, you look at some of the policies here and being anti-crypto, it's going to affect millions, tens of millions of Americans. But not only that, there's also concerns on things like a CBDC or a central bank digital currency with government overreach. And so these types of topics not being addressed, not taken seriously, I think are going to create concerns for a lot of Americans that hold crypto.
Do you think that a lot of crypto voters are single issue voters?
I mean, I don't think most voters are single issue voters, right? But crypto is something that people are passionate about. I think it's a topic and in a space where every single one of us is getting hammered by inflation, and you go to the grocery store and things are more and more expensive, and you maybe put some money into a yield or a high yield savings account, and maybe you get 3, 4, 5%, but it's still not keeping up with inflation, and it's not keeping up with what you're seeing every day happen in your life. And so crypto has been somewhere where people have turned that has outperformed pretty much every other asset class. And, so that is a big part of why people are passionate about this space, not only for, the technology and what it's doing, but of course it's helping their bottom line. It's helping them make ends meet. It's helping them feed their families. It's helping to make a difference. And I think that's actually very important to the average person and the average American that's going to be holding crypto.
Well, no matter what, there's going to be a new administration next year. What do crypto voters want to hear and see most from a potential White House administration? They're going to hear from 2 of the 3 major candidates this week.
Absolutely. So actually yesterday I was at an interview from RFK Jr. And, I think he made some really interesting points that I think a lot of the American people want to hear, right? So he talked about adding, for example, Bitcoin on the balance sheet as a reserve currency or part of that basket. I think we're expecting to see Trump make a similar announcement on Saturday. We'll see. That's the rumor as of now. But I think you also want to see, deregulation on, industries and figuring out how to actually make America be a leader in this industry, right? And I think for far too long, we've seen in reality, a lot of the jobs that could have been in America go elsewhere. And personally, I'm not an American, but of course, this is an election that I think impacts the whole world and our whole industry. And there is incredible talent in the United States that I think could be capitalizing more on this technology, if the regulatory environment allowed for it.
Yeah, Ali, you're based in Singapore, correct?
Correct.
How advanced would you say the U.S. is when it comes to crypto compared to the rest of the world?
I would say the U.S. is fairly behind from a regulatory perspective. I would say from a talent perspective, I mean, the U.S. has many of the best institutions in the world, many of the best talent. When you think about, engineers, software engineers, developers, all the way through to, great business minds. And, this is a gap because we've actually started to see brain drain over the last 5, 7, 8 years where a lot of incredible people have moved to Southeast Asia or across Asia or to the Middle East. Dubai, Singapore, Switzerland have all, really built themselves as almost the place to go, if you're going to be building in the Web3 or blockchain industry. And I think that's really at the detriment to places like the United States, even Canada, which has had, not the most friendliest regulatory environments for this industry. I think it's really impacted these countries.
What does Singapore have that the United States does not?
I think Singapore, while it has a very high regulatory bar, I think they've created clarity. They've actually put out policies. It's very clear on what you need to do to get licensed. There's a very clear way to get licensed. You don't have these types of issues like what Coinbase is facing, where they go out, they follow all of the rules, they go on their S1 and then they get listed. And then, the SEC comes back and says, hey, we didn't actually read all of this stuff in your S1 and we're going to go back and we're going to have a legal battle over it, right? Like these things are detrimental to everybody. And, Coinbase is a stock that's going to be in a lot of people's 401ks or in their investment portfolio. And that's going to impact them negatively as well. So these types of things in this uncertain regulatory environment is not good for anyone in really any industry, especially an innovative industry. And I'm not talking about just blockchain, but this is going to be the same thing on AI. It's going to be the same thing on any of these industries that are really pushing the needle.
Well, like AI, crypto mining draws a lot of power. How concerned would you say people are about climate, alternative energy sources, and where does that fall with political priorities?
It's a really good question. I mean, I'm a very big believer in, to really change the world, we need to basically really test a resource, right? If you think about historically, as you had major innovations, you basically push the limit on a resource, and then innovations basically come out to basically allow us to 10x, 100x, 1000x the potential of that. And so if we're talking about the advancement of human society as a whole, we need to be thinking about, how are we going to 10x, 100x our energy output, because we're going to need to do that. And how do we do that in a clean way? And I think this is more of the conversation, because whether it's Bitcoin or AI or other things, it's going to consume a lot of energy as we continue to progress. And I think there's a lot of solutions from an infrastructure perspective that we can start to implement as a country, from a policy perspective, that we can drive better energy solutions in the country that are green, right? And I think that's a really big part of it. But Bitcoin is really about a really stable infrastructure that I think allows us to get away from the traditional banking system. And I think there's many people that have, really brought up risks around currency and currency devaluation. If a lot of people are concerned about the debt and rising debt in the United States, these are things that really, I think, get hedged from Bitcoin. And this is actually a critical industry to be in the United States and abroad.
Ali Madavji, managing partner of the Blockchain Founders Fund. Thank you so much for stepping away from the conference to talk to us. So we appreciate your thoughts on this.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me.